For your second project, you'll need to be able to include a graph that Excel isn't able to graph directly. So I'll show you how to do that. I have some sample data here that I've labeled as X and Y data. Suppose I put this data in some other software and came up with y equals x squared as a good regression. Excel could have come up with such a simple regression on its own, but we'll use it to make our example easier. So I'll come up here to the first cell for the y predicted, and I want this to be equal to A2, which is the corresponding x value squared, because I think that my regression line should be y equals x squared. And then if I hover over the bottom right corner, I get this formula copying option. And so I'll click and hold with the mouse and drag down to fill all these cells with that same equation. So now you see in the equation bar up here that I have equals A2 squared, and moving down is A3 squared and A4 squared, and so on. Excel updates the row value without me having to explicitly type all that. So I'll come up here to insert, and I'd like to insert a scatter plot. I'd like to include my data, so I'll come here to select data and add. I'll name this series data. And the x values for this series are the x values in my data here, so I'll highlight all these. And the y values for this scatter plot are the data y values. And I'd like to add a second scatter plot, which is my predicted values. So I'll come back here to add. In this series, I'll name predicted. The x values for these are the x values again. And the y values will be the predicted y values this time. I now have two scatter plots on the same axes. I have in blue the y data as a function of x, and in orange I have the y predicted as a function of x. I'd like for the actual data points to remain as points on my chart, but the predicted values I'd really rather have a continuous curve. So I'll click on the orange data points, and then right click, and I can change the series chart type. You'll see here for predicted it's currently set to scatter, and I would rather have that as scatter with smooth lines. Excel doesn't give us the equation y equals x squared, but it does give us a good approximation of what that would appear to be